Doctors, have you ever witnessed the meltdown of a birth that was clearly a result of a cheating spouse? What was the aftermath? It wasn't at the birth, but I used to work for a urologist who did vasectomies. He did a vas on a guy, then did the requisite 3-month and 6-month semen analysis follow-up tests to make sure it worked. The 6-month test showed no sperm, so the guy was all set to not father children. Fast forward 2 years, and he calls my surgeon fuming, ranting, and raving about how he upped the vasectomy and now his wife is pregnant. So doc orders another semen analysis. Of course, it comes back totally negative. A very awkward conversation ensued in the exam room that I'd have paid anything to eavesdrop on. The best part is, the couple left the office pissed off, with the wife sticking to her story that she would never cheat on her husband, and the husband in complete denial that she'd ever lie about that. Last I heard they were gearing up to sue or something, but I don't work there anymore so I don't know what happened. Sad face. These stories remind me of something I experienced firsthand the day after my son was born. Nurse, so your baby's blood type is A wife, like me. Nurse, and daddy. Me, no, I'm A plus nurse, you must be mistaken, that combination isn't possible. Nurse, I'll leave you guys to it. Me, pulls out phone and frantically Googles, baby blood type combinations. Props for checking first before attacking your wife, laughing face. Well, A and A plus not combining to A sounds really strange. A friend went through it. He went down a dark path of drugs and we'd lost touch after a big fight about how he was up all the time and he was wasting his life. He contacted me out of the blue to say that I was right. He needed to step up and be responsible and that he had quit everything cold turkey because he was going to be a dad. Apparently he was going to help his girl get sober and they were going to have this kid and get married. He really got his together over the course of the pregnancy. He was clean, got a job, and got a nice place to live. She was not so dedicated. She continued to use meth, pills, and heroin throughout the pregnancy. She ended up going into labor early at 26 weeks. She gave birth to a premature addicted baby boy. He went directly into the NICU. She stayed in the hospital and visited the NICU until she was released. She then disappeared. She never visited the baby, never called to check on it, didn't go home, just fell off the face of the planet. He however spent every spare second at the NICU with that baby. However, as the weeks passed it became pretty obvious that the baby wasn't his as skin tone evened out and hair came in. Chick was blonde with blue eyes. My friend is super pale blonde with blue eyes. The baby was clearly half Hispanic. He wanted to adopt the baby but they wouldn't let him. The state took it and it went into foster care. It totally him up for a long time. He relapsed for a while and got into a bad car accident. He spent some time in the hospital and then got everything back together. He's married now to a really nice girl and rapidly had 4 kids that are his with another currently on the way. Not a doctor, but still a relevant story. When I was born, my father was 100% certain that I was not his because his blood type and my mom's blood type couldn't have produced me. He punched a hole in the wall in the hospital and yelled at my mom refusing to sign the birth certificate because I have A plus blood. My mom has 0 NEG and he was positive that he had a NEG because that's what his brand new dog tags said. He was in the army at the time. Turns out, they misprinted his dog tags. All his old tags said a positive. TLDR, a typo on my dad's army issued dog tags almost caused my parents to divorce. Edit, words are hard before coffee. I'm not a doctor, but when my godson was born, the nurse told us about this guy who had gotten 2 girls pregnant at the same time. They both wound up at that hospital just down the hall from each other giving birth hours apart. What a lucky guy. When my mother was giving birth to my little sister, my paternal aunt was also giving birth to my cousin in the same hospital. My dad was back and forth between the 2 rooms often enough to get some looks from hospital staff. Hey, that one is my sister. Ugh, you banged your sister? You sicko. Funny story that reminds me of this. My husband, then boyfriend, was in the process of getting divorced when I found out I was pregnant. His soon-to-be ex-wife found out a month later she was also pregnant from a guy she had a one-night stand with, not my husband. Prior to this she was refusing to sign divorce papers because she hoped to reconcile even if he did have a pregnant girlfriend. Obviously it wouldn't work out since she got knocked up by another guy, so she finally signed them. The similar part is that our due dates were 11 days apart. We had the same obstetrician, and were set to deliver at the same hospital. My company switched insurances a week before I was due and I got to pick a different hospital. Wouldn't you know it, we went into labor hours apart and delivered on the same day. Our obstetrician had to deliver my son first and then run across town to deliver her son. The OB did a double take when she saw my ex's family show up to visit her later after visiting us. He may have divorced her, but we didn't mind. His sister even stayed when she delivered to be her support buddy, even though she was officially with the one-night stand guy and his family was there. Our OB told us she thought that may have been the most Jerry Springer thing she had seen in a while. I have a friend Katie whose brother Joe got his Joe's girlfriend pregnant. The brother Joe was a total loser, and the family kind of adopted the girlfriend and her kid while giving the brother Joe the boot. Edit. That same friend got pregnant herself, and her boyfriend turned out to be a loser, secretly both doing and dealing drugs. Unfortunately for her, her boyfriend's family didn't step up like hers did for her brother's baby mama. The worst part is, her boyfriend's grandparents are super wealthy, but his parents forbade them from telling the grandparents out of fear that the super conservative grandparents would cut that entire side of the family off. So my friend raised her son in poverty and on welfare for the first 3 years of her son's life. She's remarried with another kid now, so it all worked out. But it just goes to show karma isn't real. Edit 2, edits for clarity. That sort of makes sense to me if he's a crappy son and father. My husband and his ex were like poison to each other and were just polar opposites on everything. Still wondering how the heck they thought getting married was a good idea for either of them. His ex-wife and I are actually pretty good friends now, although my husband doesn't speak to her. They could literally start fighting over the way he says hello to her, so he just doesn't. It doesn't bother him anymore that his family and her are still in touch either. I get why his family still keeps in touch with her. She's a great person. And so is the one-night stand guy. He's her husband now. It worked out well for all of us. My friend was a delivery nurse for the hospital that all high-risk pregnancies go to. They are extremely busy and she has brought a lot of people into the world. She once delivered a baby in the parking lot by herself. This has come up on a weekly basis, but she shared the best story with us. A Caucasian couple come in and the mother is in labor. When the dude is filling out paperwork, the mother takes the doctor aside. She tells him there is a chance that the baby may a different race than the father and to let her know as soon as the baby is born. The baby is born. The doctor turns to the mother and announces loudly, "Congratulations on your white baby boy." One of my wife's co-workers just delivered her own baby in the passenger seat of her car while in the hospital parking lot. So, earlier in the day she goes to the hospital because she's having contractions. They check her out, tells her they are Braxton Hicks, and she's fine. So she goes home. A little while later she is feeling the contractions worse, so she goes back to the hospital, but they tell her the same thing. She begs them to let her stay, but they basically tell her to go home. Which is up that they wouldn't just let her stay the night. On top of that, it's her third kid, so she knows what does doing and knows how she is feeling at this point compared to past pregnancies. It's like 10 p.m. or maybe slightly later at this point. So she goes back home, is there for maybe 15 minutes, laying on her couch, and her water breaks. They rush back to the hospital, and since it's late at night the ER door is locked, and generally there is security guard there to let people in. Her husband is banging on the door for someone to come open it, and for whatever reason, it takes a minute for someone to open the door. The husband runs back to the car to get his wife, and she is kind of squatting above the seat holding their newborn baby. Pretty up on the hospital's part. This is fun. My wife's cousin's third came out black. She's married to the pastiest Irish guy you can find. Their marriage did not end, but this has created an interesting story. Grandma tells everyone that he is just really Native American, her husband was one half Native. He is now 15 and still, no one in the family will admit that he's black.